Now what do you say here? You say salut, santé, l'chaim, cheers. In Scotland we say slán Java. Have you heard this? It means good health. Let's try it. Slán Java.
Slán Java.
Oh, you can do better than that. Slán Java.
Slán Java.
Now we're in drinking whiskey, okay? So, wee bit for more housekeeping, guys, before we start. I know you want to start drinking your whiskey. In Scotland, people say, what's the best way to drink whiskey? Now, I don't mind, as long as you're drinking Glenfiddich. You can put Coca-Cola in it if you want, Red Bull. Don't quote me on that, please. But no, people say, should they put ice in their whiskey or water? No problem with ice. I know we like Scotch on the rocks in the summertime, a hot climate. When you put ice in the whiskey, it's lovely. But technically, and the chemist will tell you this, when you put ice in the whiskey, it becomes cold and sweet, and they kind of all tend to taste the same. So I would recommend, guys, these glasses are specially made for nosing and tasting. So I would recommend a small nip first, a wee taste, neat, and then a tiny splash of water, maybe just a wee capful of water, and it's going to blossom. Now, not for the older ones tonight, maybe for your 21 and above, you don't want to put water in it or too much water, especially not the 30. But for your 12, 14, 15, 18, no problem. A Scotsman told you you can put water in your Scotch, so you can do it. Also, in Scotland, guys, people ask, what's the difference between blended whiskey and single malts? You guys know the difference? Mm-hmm. It's kind of complicated, but your average blended whiskey, can you name me one? Name me a blended Scotch. Johnny Walker, good man. Johnny Walker, Grouse, Chivas, our own beautiful Grants. Yeah. Now Grants, yeah, there's a cool story about Grants. Our founder, who we'll talk about, William Grant, he used to like a whiskey at night when he went to bed, but his wife wasn't very happy. So he used to hide the bottle under the bed, but it kept rolling out. So he designed this triangular bottle, especially for that purpose. I don't know if that's true or not. So blended whiskey, guys, your average blended whiskey, Grant's for example, which is ours, is 80% grain whiskey. Have you heard this? So it's almost like a neutral filler grain whiskey, which could be barley or corn or wheat. So 80% grain, and then 20% single malts. And of the 20%, there could be 30 or 40 malts in that recipe. Does that make sense? So I've seen the recipe for Grant's, for example, with our malt master, David Stewart, and there's 30 different malts in there. Sometimes you'll say an Islay, part Campbelltown, part Speyside, and that's the recipe for Grant's, for example. So the whiskey houses swap whiskies. So we'll swap whiskey with Macallan for Grouse, and they'll swap Macallan with us for Grouse, for example. So it's kind of a different animal, just to get the point across, that until the 1960s, the whole world drank blended whiskey. So that was your top shelf, was Grant's, Chivas, Johnny Walker Black. That was your top shelf. It was 1963 that the Grant family, our family, exported Glenfiddich as a single malt. If you think of it almost like a blank canvas, and the grain whiskey is the blank canvas, and then the single malt is the colour when you make the painting to make the blend. But as I say, until the 60s, all your single malts, all your Glenfiddich, Balvenie, Macallan, Glenmorangie, Glenlivet, it all went into blending. That makes sense. So although we're old companies, 200 years old sometimes, you couldn't buy a Balvenie or Glenfiddich until the 60s or the 70s. It's amazing. People don't realise that. And we started the category, so we're very proud of that. The Grant family started the single malt category. Shall we have a whiskey? Yes, enough talking. Okay, guys. So top left on your mat, top left. We're spoiled tonight. We're starting at 21. Now, as you know, we normally have 12, 14, 15, 18. When Glenfiddich started the category in 1963, the first single malt was an 8-year-old. Now that's amazing, isn't it? We're spoiled nowadays. That was seen as luxury. It went immediately to the top shelf, and that was 8-year-old. Nowadays, we take it for granted that we've got 12 and above. So we're very fortunate tonight. It's fortunate for all of us as well, because we don't get to taste this all the time. We're starting with 21, so it's kind of cool, guys. So the top left on your mat, it's a 21-year-old Glenfiddich, which is a combination of bourbon and sherry cask, which we'll talk about. But it's a 21-year-old Glenfiddich. It's called Grand Reserva. It's slightly tropical, So what kind of barrels do you think we use for this one? Rum, yes. So 21 years Glenfiddich, and then about 4 months in beautifully seasoned rum casks. Now, we used to buy rum casks from the Caribbean, but the supply dried up. Because if you've ever been and you've seen the barrels in the Caribbean, they sit outside. So they get blackened with the sea spray and they fall apart. They don't last so long. What we do is we buy 7 or 8 different types of small family rum, and we blend it and make our own rum. Does that make sense? A golden rum. And we season our own barrels with it. Now, being Scottish, we then sell it back for more than we paid for it. Not dafty Scots. So we sell it back, but we're not interested in the rum, remember. We're left with these beautifully seasoned rum casks, into which the 21-year Balvenie goes for 4 months. That makes sense? So Balvenie. Yeah, Glenfiddich. I used to work for Balvenie, so I sometimes say Balvenie. And we also have Caribbean cask also, which is the same process. So the 21-year-old Glenfiddich goes into the cask for 4 months. And that gives it lovely, let's try it, shall we? Slàinte mhath. Yep. That gives it lovely honey, vanilla, and then tropical notes. So you get the pineapple, the burnt sugars, the molasses. It's lovely, isn't it? Very light, very sweet, very delicate. Now, what do we not get, which you might expect from Scotch? Some people expect. What do you think? Peat or smoke. Yep. So there are 5 whisky regions. Would you like to stand up? Would you care to stand up? Amazing assistant here. There are 5 whisky regions. This is not a prop. This is not a plant. You came with this, didn't you? So 5 whisky regions. Have you heard this, guys? It's almost like the wine regions in France. So in Scotland, what do we have? Islay, Campbelltown, Speyside, Highland, Lowland. Yeah. So it's almost like the wine regions, but it's not quite the same. Who are you guys wine experts, wine buffs, kind of, maybe, I'm not really. But basically, it's about the soil and the grapes in France, and everyone produces a different type of wine. In Scotland, it's slightly different. You've got the lowlands in the south. You name me a lowland whisky? All the blended ones. So basically, all your blended whisky and the grain whisky is in the south. And it's very light, almost like Chardonnay in colour, very light whisky. Then we come to the Highlands, and that's the big region, Highlands and Speyside together. And that's your light, sweet, honey, vanilla, Glenfiddich, Balvenie, Glenlivet, Glenmorangie, Macallan. They're all in the Highland and Speyside region. And the Spey Valley, there's about 50 different distilleries along the Spey Valley. So that's the capital of the world now for Scotch. Then you come west, and this is your smoky ones. Where do the smoky ones come from? Islay, yes, Islay and Campbelltown. So name me a smoky one, you guys know it.
Ardbeg.
Yep, Ardbeg, Lafroig, Buccleuch, you know them all. Some Islay fans in here, in a sense. So that's your smoky peaty ones, an acquired taste, beautiful whisky, but that's your smoky peaty ones from Islay. And then the last region is Campbelltown, where I'm from. Very small place, only 5,000 people, a small fishing port. There used to be 36 distilleries there in Campbelltown. They used to say the captains of the ships used to navigate through the fog by the smell of the whisky to get into port. Now there's only 3 left. Who can name me the Campbelltown one? Red Scotia, well done. Springbank, yep, well done. Kilkerran, yep. So 3 left in Campbelltown. That used to be the whisky capital, but it's now Dufftown and Speyside. What's that?
I think they're building one now.
They are, that's right. They're building another one. Yep, it's amazing. So it's growing up again. But that Scotch is huge at the moment, obviously. So, but basically, Speyside and the Highlands, apart from 1 or 2, are not smoky or peaty. You guys, I sense some of you like smoky, peaty ones, yeah? You like your Islay, yeah? It's a kind of an acquired taste, isn't it? You work up to it. But Speyside is generally not. So light, sweet, honey, vanilla flavours, and like the 21, tropical. It's a lovely whisky, isn't it? Quite sweet on the palate. Would be nice with cigars. Goes very well with food or dessert. But a lovely, delicious, delicate whisky. Our next one, guys, top right on the mat. Top right. This is our 23 Grand Cru. Now, there's kind of a French theme starting here. Grand Cru. It's actually finished in cuvee wine casks. Do you know what I mean, guys? Cuvee wine casks, the top of the range white wine casks, which actually go on to become sparkling wine. So we buy these beautiful French cuvee wine casks, and finish our 23-year-old again for about 6 to 9 months. Now, when I say finish, I don't mean finish in the Scottish sense, but finish as in transferring into the second barrel. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was actually our sister distillery, Balvenie, which pioneered that in the 1980s, David Stewart. He was the first man to transfer, or lady, to transfer it into a second barrel, and it was called the Balvenie Classic. And that was the first finished whiskey in the 1980s. Now the whole industry does it. We've got all these beautiful finishes, but it was actually by Balvenie who pioneered it. So very proud of that. This one, when you nose it, guys, when you nose it, let's nose it gently. You can actually get some wine notes, don't you, from the white wine, yeah? But this is quite cool, it's quite deceiving. When you taste it, let's try it, Slanger.
Slanger.
You don't get the wine flavours, you get the sweet breads, brioche, pastry, honey and vanilla. Again, it's lovely, isn't it? And a beautiful mouthfeel. The older the whiskey, the smoother it's going to be, but also the longer the finish should be. It's almost like a liqueur, isn't it? It coats your mouth, and you're going to start tasting it in waves. The older it is, that's what happens. It's lovely whiskey though, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Quite different to the 21. 21's arguably sweeter. This one you get more of the baked bread, pastry notes perhaps. Yeah. But remember guys, Scotch is always personal to you. You don't have to agree with what I say or what's on the bottle. So someone gets something different every time, depending on the weather. I can assure you, Namid knows this also, in Scotland, the best way to drink whiskey is outside in the cold and the rain. So that's when you get all the lovely flavours. Have you been to Scotland, anyone? Yes? Yeah. Was it raining?
Yeah.
No, yes, yeah, probably yeah. Did you play golf?
Yeah.
Cool. Did you try haggis?
Yes.
Yes. What do you think?
My grandmother used to make it.
Oh, really? Cool. Yeah. Haggis, guys, is a very Scottish dish. It's kind of polarising. Some people like it, some people don't. But they say the story is the best breakfast in Scotland is a Scotch, haggis, and a sheepdog. People say, what's a sheepdog for? That's to eat the haggis. No, I like haggis, it's very good. So we talked about blended whiskey, single malts, the 5 whiskey regions where every whiskey is slightly different, water and ice and how to drink it. So see, these glasses are cool. The Glencairn glasses, they're actually made for nosing and tasting. So I would try and get one of these if you can. Our family story, which we mentioned, we're very proud of this. Our founder was William Grant, the gentleman who liked a dram before he went to bed at night. He had a dream or a vision that he wanted to have the best whiskey or the best dram in the valley. Call it a dram in Scotland, yes. He wanted the best dram in the valley. So he worked at Mortlach, which the guys have probably got here. Mortlach, yeah, you've heard of it. Nice Speyside distillery. He actually worked there, but he wanted to have his own family distillery. So he left his job, and along with his 7 sons and 2 daughters, they built Glenfiddich distillery by hand. It took them 2 years. So the first whiskey came off the stills Christmas Day, 1887. Yep, that's very cool. But 130 odd years later, we're still owned by the Grant family. So there's about 150 different distilleries in Scotland. There's only 3 families left, and we're the major one. The other 2 are actually Springbank and Campbelltown and Glenfarclas. There's 2 things, a wee bit technical. Can I get a bit technical? You guys like? Yeah?
Yes,
oh yes, good. So we have a coppersmith at Glenfiddich and Balvenie. A coppersmith, you know what I mean? Why would we have a coppersmith?
To make stills.
Stills, yep. So legally, it must be copper to make the whiskey. We tried aluminium, stainless steel, different other metals back through the years, but always went back to copper. 2 reasons: it conducts heat well with the fire underneath, obviously, but also there's a chemical reaction with the liquid. Have you heard this? So it actually removes sulfates or bad flavours. So it's always copper. Also, the cool thing is, each distillery, their whiskey is different for various reasons, but one of them is the shape or the height of the still. So who's got extraordinary tall stills? Shouldn't say this. Glenmorangie, right? One of our competitors. Glenmorangie, extraordinary tall. That's their thing. Very cool, lovely whiskey. It's tall for a reason, because if you imagine when the heat's underneath, the liquid starts to bubble and boil, it comes up, call it reflux, and then eventually it gets to the top, down the neck, down the arm, and it drips out. That's your distillation. If you've got a tall still, it has to fight to get to the top. Does that make sense? So the heavier, oilier notes fall back in, and only the lightest whiskey comes out. So that's why they get really tall stills. So Glenfiddich, for example, they're shorter, so the liquid could be slightly richer or oilier. Both lovely whiskey, but just depends on the shape of the still. So it's kind of cool. The chemistry does have an effect. But going back to our coppersmith, we have a coppersmith who myself and Ahmed have met, Dennis McBain. I'm telling you his name because Dennis is over 80. He started at the age of 16, lied about his age to get a job at the distillery, started at the age of 16, but Dennis has just joined Facebook. And if you post something, some of you guys know this, yes? You're a follower, he follows you. Dennis will like it. It's great for your ego. If you post something, Dennis McBain will like it. So please follow Dennis McBain, McBain, lovely guy. But he's our coppersmith. So the copper is very important in making the whiskey. And we respect these crafts and skills. That's why we have Dennis. The other thing, which is quite fascinating, is the wood or the barrels. Have you heard this, guys? Yeah? Let's try the next whiskey and then we'll talk about the barrels. Bottom left, guys. Bottom left. Yep. So, Grand Couronne. So kind of a French theme going on with our Grand Cru, which was finished in wine cask. We have our Grand Couronne, which is finished in, what do you think, guys? Cognac. Yep. Kind of unusual, but it works. 26 years in Glenfiddich barrels, bourbon and sherry cask. And then again, just about a year in cognac casks, French oak. When you nose this one, guys, it's quite sweet, isn't it? You get the honey, vanilla, oranges perhaps, and a little few wine notes from the cognac casks. Let's try it. Slàinte mhath. Really sweet, isn't it? Almost like oranges, marmalade, lemon. It's going to come in waves. When you get to this age, 26, it's going to come in waves and you're going to taste it for 5 or 10 minutes. It's a lovely whiskey, isn't it? I would cleanse your palate before you try this one and have another sip, and you get all these lovely orange and lemon notes. Beautiful whiskey. So, at Glenfiddich and also Balvenie, we have a cooperage. You guys know what that is, obviously, making the barrels. Yep. From the Latin word cuparis, so really old skill or craft going back thousands of years. Making the barrels is so important. Anyone can make a nice spirit. We could all make whiskey at home, couldn't we? Some of our distillery guys do. they get parts from the stills and make whiskey at home, but highly illegal. But anyone can make a nice spirit. It's only once it goes into the barrels that it depends how it's going to turn out. Now, excuse me, ma'am. When it comes off the still, it's clear, isn't it? Yeah. Moonshine, white lightning, cleric, we call it in Scotland. It's only once it goes into the barrels that it gets all the colour and about 80% of the flavour from the casks. Now, discovered by accident, French monks in the 15th century, way back, were making eau de vie or aquavita, water of life, and they put some liquid in barrels and it was forgotten about, left in cellars for a few years, and then they came back in, looked at it, wow, sacre bleu, Scottish French monks. They found this beautiful golden colour and flavour from the barrels. So like many good things, discovered by accident. So that was the first thing. It was used for storage originally and transportation, but then we realised that the barrels were having a great effect on the whiskey. Now, legally, what kind of wood must it be?
So are you saying whiskey is actually French?
Well, it's actually probably Irish. We'll give them that. The Irish, if you want to go back in your history, the Celts came through Europe and they settled in Ireland, and then in the 5th century they came to Scotland, my part of the world, and arguably brought distillation with them, the monks. So we'll give the Irish that, they had it before us. If you buy an Irish whiskey, which is ours, I meant Tullamore Dew, for example, the Irish distill it 3 times, so it's triple distilled. Scotch is only 2. But we say the Irish need 3 times to get it right. Don't tell them I said that. But yeah, so arguably the monks actually started distillation, in Europe. And then it came through Ireland and Scotland literally 1500 years ago. So a very old skill or craft. But the barrels must be oak. Yeah, so they must be oak. But the cool thing is, this is when it gets a bit technical, they could be American oak or European oak. Bourbon cask or sherry cask. You guys have heard of sherry, yes? Yeah. Does anyone still drink sherry? A little bit, yeah. Ah, cool. My parents used to drink, a lot of people in the 70s, didn't they, and 80s, drank sherry, aperitif, before dinner. So going back 100 years, sherry, cognac, and wine was the drink of the middle classes and the aristocracy. That kind of went into decline, and sherry casks, the supply became less and less. So now, your average sherry butt, big barrel, call it sherry butt, is about $600. Your average bourbon cask, like this one, 150. So pure economics means that over the last 100 years, we've gone from sherry cask to bourbon cask. The other thing, after Prohibition, the American government, the Coopers Union, you've heard this, yeah? The Coopers Unions and the logging industry all agreed that the bourbon guys could only use virgin casks, use them once, to reinvigorate the industry. Now, we don't really use unused barrels because the wood would be too powerful. That makes sense? Yeah. Too much flavour in it. We can use it for finishing, like our 14 bourbon cask, but generally a new bourbon cask is too much. So the bourbon guys use it once, and then we buy all the bourbon casks, basically. So now 80% of Scotch is in bourbon barrels and 20% sherry, whereas it used to be the other way around. But the cool thing is, if you ever go to distillery, please go to our distilleries, you'll see the difference. Your average bourbon cask whiskey will be this colour. So when it comes out, it's really light, like that colour. Whereas the sherry cask whiskey is almost like that. It's amazing. And it's not the sherry in the barrel, it's actually the type of oak. So the American oak gives you light, sweet, honey, vanilla, coconut flavours. The European oak, darker chocolate, prune, tobacco, sherry flavours. Amazing. So most Glenfiddich, for example, is a marriage of both. So you get the benefits of both type of cask. It's amazing. It's fascinating, the history. The other thing, which someone is probably about to ask, charcoal or lightly toasted, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So the bourbon casks have all got charcoal inside them. If you cut one open, you'll see the charcoal inside. And that's there for a reason. Whereas the sherry casks are only lightly toasted. You see them in the big bodegas in Spain where they fire them. Again, discovered by accident. In the old days, they used to ship whiskey down the Mississippi River. And there'd be whiskey in one way, yeah, you've heard this. On the way back, it would be food in the barrels. But the food was rotting in the heat. So you had to clean them to make them safe again. And this layer of charcoal was being built up. And they realised that the charcoal was filtering the whiskey. You heard this? Yeah. So the charcoal is there for a reason. And the bourbon guys get very technical. They talk about levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 of char, don't they? So it's there for a reason. The barrels breathe in the warehouse. What do we call that in Scotland when we lose by evaporation?
Angel share.
Angel share, yes. You guys are experts tonight. It's the best audience we've had this week. Yeah, no, seriously, yeah, you guys know this. So the angel share is 2% per annum in Scotland. But if you go to Kentucky, for example, they lose about 10 or 15% because it's so hot. And also, the maturation process is a lot quicker. So in Scotland, it might take 3 or 4 years to get this colour, whereas in bourbon counties, it would be this after 6 months because the maturation is so quick. Does that make sense? Also, and I'm sure you've heard this, the bourbon guys have to rotate the barrels. So the bourbon casks in the roof of the warehouse will mature very quickly, don't they? Yeah. So they swap them around every year or so. Not in Scotland, because it's cold and damp everywhere, including the warehouses. So we don't need to move our barrels. It's very slow. But if you imagine, guys, the age of this whiskey, 21, 23, 26 and 30, you can imagine what's happened in the world while this cask was sitting in the dark in the warehouse in Scotland. Imagine all the history that's happened. It's amazing. So it's amazing that you're drinking history in a glass. So the last thing in with the cask, guys, bourbon and sherry, only 5% of the barrels ever get to this age. They all peak before that. It's quite, people don't realise this, and it's not a silly question, but it's all the same spirit for Glenfiddich, you know. We don't make a 12 spirit or a 14 or an 18. It's all the same spirit. Then the barrels are filled and then they're left. And then after about 10 years, we start checking them. So that's how we do it. So only the best ones get past 21. They all peak before that. So tonight, guys, we're very fortunate. We're drinking the top 5% whiskey in the world.
So how do you know when it peaks?
It's a great question. How do we know? The malt master David Stewart for Balvenie, Brian Kinsman for Glenfiddich, they check them every year basically. So they get samples sent to their labs. So Mr. Stewart and Mr. Kinsman, you could nose or taste about 40 a day. Ahmed and I are trying to get his job. We're still aspiring to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, seriously. And the funny thing is, they don't taste, they nose. They say that you can pick out more good notes or bad notes by nosing. And also going back to water, they dilute it way down. They dilute it 5 times. You heard this? So you'll see all the glasses laid out and they're topped way up with water. Then he puts the caps back on and then they start their day's work nosing them. So there's one for every barrel. So they literally check every barrel every so often and they'll say that's a good one, that one's okay, that can go for blending, that's a really good one, leave that one aside. So it's all about the cask. Amazing. Quite fascinating. So only the top 5% ever get to this age. So our last one, guys, we call it suspended time. That goes along with what we were just saying. We call it suspended time because the malt master will say, this is a really good one, suspend the maturation, stop it right now and bottle it. That makes sense? So it's called suspended time, part of the time series. Amazing, delicious whiskey. This one, guys, we say it's beyond whiskey. Brian Kinsman, the malt master, described it to me once as beyond whiskey. It's not a scotch, it's not a single malt, it's not a whiskey, it's beyond whiskey. It's almost like an experience. When you taste this, guys, excuse me, when you taste this, you're going to taste it in waves and you're going to get different flavours coming, orange, lemon, marmalade, sherry, and then you're going to taste it for about 10 minutes. So let's enjoy this one, guys. Thank you so much for coming. We'll take some questions after, but I hope you enjoyed these whiskies and our history. Slanger. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Fun.